Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of the Sporting Chance podcast. While you're here, check out the sportingchancepod.com for all the flyest merch and a complete catalog of the episodes. And check out Clover Creek Canine on Facebook for performance canines bred by friend of the show, Sean O'Neill. Do yourself a favor, get a lurcher, get a special, get a truck terrier, whatever it is, you can't go wrong. And while we're at it, this podcast is brought to you by A Journey with Red Tails. Order the book by author Bob Glass at ajourneywithredtails.com. And for all of your tightest falconry equipment, check out midnightfalconry.com. And let's not forget mountainstatefalconrysupply.com for your premier East Coast falconry supply store. Let's not forget your boy, my boy, everyone's boy, Seth Roy, NorthMountainGoshawks.com for your parent-reared goshawk hunting partner for the 2025 hunting season. Welcome, everybody, to the Sporting Chance podcast. I'm Aaron Kincaid.
And I'm Casey Everett.
And today we are joined by Florida falconer George Blanco. Thanks for coming on, George.
Thank you for having me.
All right, George, let's get right into it. Share with us your history of falconry.
Well, I'll tell you how I got started. It's I'll give you the PG version of it. I started back in the 80s. Did you guys see the movie Scarface?
Yeah.
Okay.
What you got in this world is your word and your balls. Can't nobody take neither of them from me.
So what did every drug dealer in Scarface have? Exotics.
Yeah.
So it's the 80s and I'm living in Florida, and the entire United States is in a depression or a recession, and Florida's just booming, and everybody was an importer exporter. And my neighbor was let's call him a wannabe exporter. You know, he's dabbling in pharmaceuticals, and I walk over and he had an illegal hawk, and I was just right then and then I caught the virus. I was a child, but it was the best thing for me. It put me in the library reading about everything I could get my hands on. You know, I think I'm the last generation that grew up without the internet. So I was in the library all the time. But that's how I got started. It was a drug dealer with an illegal hawk.
Do you remember what kind of bird he had?
I have no idea. It had to be, if I had to guess, it was like a immature red shoulder.
Okay.
Oh, so like the lamest bird he could possibly have.
Yeah, but you know what? When you're like 14, 15 and
oh yeah,
this guy's calling this thing to the fist to show off to his girlfriend, you're like, wow, dude, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my intro into falconry.
I think we get jaded on red shoulders as falconers. To everyone else, they're cool.
Exactly.
I mean, they are cool. They are a cool bird.
Nah.
No, they're pretty neat. I mean, my buddy told me a story. He saw one chase a flicker for like 30 minutes, like nonstop, just putting everything it had into trying to catch that flicker. You know, they have it in them.
Yeah, I've seen them catch collar doves.
Yep, you got those down there. I've noticed that in Florida. Yeah. They make a really weird noise, but they're everywhere.
You know, that's another thing about Florida that we'll touch on. It's we're some of us are taking advantage of the exotics, right?
Smart.
So we have this bird that I use to enter the red tail on, or to get it started, because with the exotics we don't have any laws. We could harvest them all year round. And we got this thing, you can look it up, it's called an African purple swamp hen.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, man. So they act like a very slow pheasant.
Wow. Interesting.
They're in the swamp, they're in the rice fields, and it's just great to get a bird started when everything else is shut down, you know? So they're bigger. They almost look like a massive gallinule. but they're faster than a gallinule, and they act like a pheasant, and they get up and fly, and they fight like hell. But yeah, that's one of the exotics that's down here. Yeah, we got the collar doves that we hunt year round. But yeah,
we got to get into that, because like if somebody sent me Jimmy G from Rhode Island sent me a clip of that. You've probably seen it, George, of the red tail on top of the
iguana
in the park, and it's just like if I moved there tomorrow and like I just had a red tail, like I would probably try to catch him. Like as someone that's seen them and dealt with them, is that a possibility?
Dude, you don't want any part of that.
Yeah,
you don't want any part of that. I don't know if you. So reptiles are always stronger than birds, and birds are always stronger than mammals, right?
Right.
Per gram. Those iguanas, bring it, man. That iguana that red tail had it's like a 9-pound jackrabbit.
Right.
And they have these claws, the tail whips. Yes, I've seen them preying on them, but that for them to kill full-grown iguana, it's a big deal.
Right.
But the flight, you don't want any part of the flight. The flights, they're not very fast. You know, it's just a fight. That's all it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't think if you went to a park and just had a big, nice red tail and just caught a couple and got in there and dispatched, it wouldn't be like a feasible thing?
Oh, it absolutely is. I have a friend of mine. He's one of the only guys that's hunted squirrels in this part of town, because we don't have. So see, where you guys are at, you could just drive a little bit out of town and find a woodlot and walk in and start flushing squirrels.
Yeah.
And in South Florida, that's all gone. Every inch that's high and dry, we've paved over and created a shopping center or townhouse.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So this buddy of mine, he's figured out a way to do urban hawking with a red tail, and he'll go to industrial parks or just any huge park, you know, like let's say a Monday early in the morning, and take squirrels. But every so often, an iguana will pop out, and yeah, he was catching iguanas like a byproduct, you know, not intentionally. I don't believe it was just one of those. Hey, it was kind of cool, but obviously the iguanas are much easier to put their feet on than a squirrel.
Right.
Yeah, it's been done. Absolutely, it's been done.
Someone was telling me that same video that went around, that iguanas weren't dangerous and that a fox squirrel was less. No, a fox squirrel is more dangerous than an iguana, and I politely disagreed with that.
Oh, well, here's the thing: that the iguana will bite, but I don't think the bite's going to be severe enough like a fox squirrel. Fox squirrels, you know. They could sever a toe. They could really hurt a hawk. I think the tail, and I think the mechanism in which the iguana is going to try to get the hawk off might be less dangerous for a hawk, because the first thing they're going to do is they're going to run for the water. That's their number one way of escaping any predator. So and then the tail. So I kind of have to agree. I think the fox squirrel might have more of a chance of hurting the hawk.
Well, let's talk about the water. Number one, when I see people hunting in Florida, I think alligators. Tell us about gators and trying to hunt in Florida.
All right. So, yeah, we have the mosquitoes are our state bird, and the gators are everywhere. You can't get around a gator. We've lost dogs to gators, beagles. If Florida's great if you want to fish, man. We got more water than Venice, you know. We have canals everywhere, and where do the prey normally we're going to find a lot of prey around the canal banks, and we'll put the dogs will go in there and flush the rabbits. And we were out there this one time out there with the dogs and the beagles, and they're doing their thing, and we heard a big splash, and Droopy went missing.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's happened. The current red tail I have now, I've left a lot of birds out in the field that I could have brought home. She is so fearful of actually diving after a duck or anything into the water. But at the same time, I think it saved her a few times where I heard her fighting a whistling duck, and I heard a big splash as I'm running up to the ditch, and she just released it, and I find her on the bank, and the duck's gone. So I physically didn't see it happen, but all the evidence pointed that she came really close. My buddy Daryl Moon, who's the gentleman I was talking to Casey about, who's probably one of the only guys that successfully flying a goshawk in Florida. Him and I have both lost falcons to gators.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of those if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I've flown more falcons than anything else, and I started off with just using pigeons, and then we went to the kite and to the drones. So this one time, I had the kite up. I forget how many feet. It was way up there, and I had a jeer barb. Takes off, takes the bait, comes down, and business as usual. Here comes a marsh hawk. The marsh hawk scares the jeer barb, and this is the worst part about it is this was absolutely my best bird. Not all birds are created equal, and this one really hurt. The marsh hawk gives chase to my bird, and it had the bait without the parachute. It had taken the food out of the lure. Are you guys familiar with how we fly the drones and the bait and all that?
Yeah. There's variations, but yeah, we know the concept.
Can you go into it for people who may not?
Exactly.
Good idea.
So either you put a kite up or a drone, and then what I would do is I had a PVC tube from the sink, and I would tie it to the string of the kite, and I shove a parachute in there, and then I had weed eater line all the way out, and then a lure. So the falcon comes up, he grabs the lure, pulls on the lure, the parachute comes out of the pipe, and the parachute slows down the falcon enough where the falcon just wants to come down to the ground. Well, that works awesome. Until if there's a small piece in which the falcon can pull it off and just put it in, grab it in that 1 foot, it'll be fine. He'll just sit there and eat. Well, this one time, here comes this marsh hawk and scares him off with that leg of a quail, whatever it had on there, and he flies off. And I knew exactly where he went, where this huge marsh, where you need an airboat to get into.
God.
And yeah, we have some places here in Florida that are very, very. You can't access them unless you have an airboat or a swamp buggy. And I had been flying this falcon for quite some time. It was an imprint. I knew this bird really well. This is before GPS, right? So I take out my 400 megahertz. I take it out, and it's pinging in this one spot. And I know it's just a big marsh. And it's 45 minutes before dark. This bird should be flying. The amount of food that he had, on the lure wasn't enough. He typically would have taken back up and come overhead, either looking for the kite or looking for me to serve him. I knew right then and then something was absolutely wrong. And I couldn't get into this one swamp. The next day, my buddy Daryl Moon and I, we get there. It's all fenced in. We get on bicycles. We get to the area in which we triangulate where the transmitter is pinging. This is we're flying again. This is before GPS. So we finally get there. We're going through the swamp. I have this great picture of my buddy Daryl Moon with the 3-element Yagi, shooting into these lily pads, and all you see is down and gray feathers and white feathers of the hybrid. And we just pick up a transmitter. I used to fly with 2 transmitter. I love backpacks. So I had a Power Max on its back, and on the tail mount, I had the micro. And we only found 1 transmitter, and I really wanted to find that gator. I know I wasn't going to bring my bird back, but I really, really wanted to find that gator.
Jeez.
Yeah, and my buddy had something similar where he was hunting ducks. I wasn't with him at the time, and it was, I guess, the falcon had a duck on the water's edge, and bam, the gator got his falcon. I heard Gary Brewer had something similar to that with like either Harris hawk or red tail on a Gallinon, where he saw the gator come out of the the water and take one of his birds. So it does happen quite often down here.
Jeez,
horrible.
Man,
that's horrible.
Yeah, it's part of it. I mean, we'll go into how I got this red tail on birds, but I literally walk swamps and mainly rice fields, and we know we're walking right by them. And there's been several times where we've come close. This one time I saw when they open up their mouth, it's just white. Okay. It's white in teeth. They keep their tongue back and you see the top of their mouth. And it was very close.
Jeez.
Close to you? Is that what you're saying?
To my foot, to my right leg. I still remember. And I hunt with my, we're 3 retired firefighter paramedics and 1 cop. We're all retired now. And I'm sure you guys could tell who takes the beating. It's the cop. And I remember after I go back and I told Tony, dude, and I of course exaggerated a little bit. The gator might have been 4 feet, but by the time we got back to the truck, that it was an 8-footer, dude.
Yeah.
And ever since then, Tony hasn't gone in the rice.
Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, and I mean, if that thing gets a hold of you and starts dragging you in, there's really not much you can do about it.
Yeah, and I wasn't packing at the time. Tony, he's always packing, so at least he'll put some rounds in it. We were. It was just me and a 4-inch knife.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
How about venomous snakes?
Yeah, we got plenty of those too. We got more. We're Florida. We got a lot of moccasins now. We got the pythons. Yeah, we got the moccasins is what scares me. Believe it or not, a little more than the gator. I mean, obviously the gator is gonna probably do more. It's gonna do more damage, but we get pretty close to moccasins. I've actually had one of my buddy's Harris hawk catch a moccasin, and it was one of those that I'm looking at. I'm like, you know what? I'm jumping in there with a gloved hand, and I put a knife through the moccasin's head.
I would imagine that a lot of hunting dogs in Florida are killed by venomous snakes.
You would think so, but we've had the gators, but we run a lot of bird dogs and stuff, and we still, knock on wood, we still haven't had a snake bite. I'm sure they do, but I could only speak for my experiences.
Right.
Unique challenges down there for sure.
For sure, absolutely. I mean, everybody has their own unique challenges.
You've also got bears and Florida panthers and all that stuff as well.
The panthers don't mess around. Coyotes. I had a buddy of mine. His falcon was taken by a coyote. Bobcats, but they don't mess with us. The biggest danger to a bobcat, to the whole bobcat deal, is if you got a hungry hawk that thinks he could tackle a bobcat. My buddy's red tail hunting those squirrels in that urban setting has caught a few cats, and I don't know if you guys have ever experienced a hawk and a cat together. It's impressive. Cats could bring it.
A feral cat or a bobcat?
Oh yeah, I rather catch a fox than a cat.
Oh, for sure.
If you're flying a goshawk, it's not as bad as you think.
Oh, stop!
He looks so smug. Hey, you guys continue. My dogs are going nuts, and I'm the only one home, so let me go deal with them.
Yeah, you got it.
Yep.
All right, so I think that's a good spot. So let's go back. Unless you have any more good stories you want to tell on that same note.
No, I'm good. Right. As far as I got plenty of stories, but it's not going to do anything for your podcast.
Okay, well, I'm sure they're good, but so because we talked about red shoulders and your neighbor slinging pharmaceuticals, and then we just kind of like jumped into gators. So let's go back a little. So you saw a red shoulder, what you think was a red shoulder, and then where'd you what did you? Because we had kind of a similar thing. I'm obviously the next generation from you, but I was kind of raised in a bubble, and we didn't really have internet, so I kind of had to do things the old-fashioned way, kind of like you. But back then, how'd you find somebody to sponsor you? And there was a sponsorship system back then, right? I think it was.
Oh yeah. So like I said, I went to the library and I jumped in right into that Dewey Decimal System. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And started reading everything I could. And then I came across this, I forget where it says, you need a license,
Yeah.
And went to this thing. We used to have these books that had numbers on them. The yellow pages and the white pages. And I got my hands on FWC. FWC for us is Florida Wildlife Commission. They oversee, it's our Fish and Wildlife Service. And I called Tallahassee and I said, I want to be a falconer. And they gave me over the phone back then. I gave them my address, my city, a list of falconers that were in my area. And Casey, I got really lucky. My sponsor is that cop I told you about. We're still friends 30 something years later. The gentleman happened to live blocked from my house. I would walk past his house when I walked to high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was super cool. And then, I was young. So it really helped that he was a cop. So it eased my parents. I'm 14 or 15. So, him being an officer made it a lot easier for my mom to say, yeah, go off in the woods with this guy.
Right. Yeah.
And again, it's the 80s. It was a wild time back then, just thinking back, so it worked out. You're going to hear this term, my feelings. I feel very lucky. I think I've been very fortunate. And that was one thing that definitely worked in my favor, meeting him, and he's been a great friend. And that's how it started. It was made a phone call, FWC. He sponsored me. Then I studied like hell to pass the test, and that's it. I'll tell you what. This is something that a lot of people don't know. Florida, especially South Florida, in the late '80s, all the way until like mid '90s, was one of the best places to do falconry.
Really?
It was. I cry just thinking about it. Okay, it's 1988, and I could drive into what's now Homestead, and the guys there were flying falcons on ducks on ditches with falcons. We had quail. If you ever find Desert Hawking 2, there's a chapter there written by Eric Tabb about hunting quail with a Harris hawk in South Florida. And that was like a Bible to us back then. It was hunting hawks of, North American hunting hawks. That was the book plus Desert Hawking. If that's the second book you would read, because it fell in line with a lot of the stuff we're doing in South Florida. We didn't have goshawks. Nobody had goshawks back then. It was Coops or Harris hawk or red tail. And then guys were just getting peregrine prairies,
Right.
So yeah, it was awesome. And then here's the other thing that was really cool. And I took it so for granted. I was such an idiot. So we had jackrabbits in South Florida in multiple spots.
Wow.
We had a strong Italian influence back in in the 80s here as well. And they brought with them the dog racing. How do you get the greyhounds really fit? How do you train greyhounds? These guys were importing jackrabbits into South Florida, and we still had vacant fields. So we had several areas where we had, if I would drop you guys, you would think you were in Texas. Sandy, high and dry, sand spurs, cactus, burrowing owls, and jackrabbits.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had quail, we had jackrabbits, we had plenty of ducks. And yeah, it formed me, but I was I never thought it was going to end. It ended.
Right. Yeah.
What happened to the jackrabbits?
Well, Florida keeps growing, and they ate, and the construction ate up all the fields. Okay, so like I said earlier, any area that's high and dry that they don't have to fill in is prime land for construction, and jackrabbits like it high and dry. So it all got built over, and then FAA. So two of the areas were right next to airports, and the airport was overrun with these jackrabbits. The FAA came in and paid a company to eradicate them. Yeah, this is where I was telling you I was foolish. If you ask George today, if that was happening today, George today will go to find that gentleman who's doing the work, who's eradicating them or trapping, and I would pay him X amount of dollars per jackrabbit, and I'd release them somewhere else, even though it's highly illegal. But I would strongly consider it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that they're around airports, because we got in our area up here, there's an airport or two that supposedly has remnant populations of jackrabbits that are in and around the area of an airport. I have yet to see this, but it's like the legend, and a couple guys I know, they hawked it hard and they had pictures to prove it, like jackrabbits in, New Jersey / New York next to this airport. And from what I was told, they're still there. I just never gotten out there. So it's interesting that you had the same kind of thing where the airport kind of had a whole bunch of them. Do you think it's just because they were flat, or do you think some of them got loose from when they were bringing them in?
Man, who knows? I'm not going to speculate. I usually, I stay in my lane. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say if I don't know. I'm just going to stay quiet. If I had to guess, one or two things. When they were done with them, they tossed them like everything else, right? When they're done with so many of the exotics we have, they've tossed them, and now they've released them, and they're everywhere. I think we didn't have laws back then in which we could not do that. So it wasn't like it was illegal, or a crate broke during transport, But I also think for them to populate as heavy as they did, it had to be more than one crate,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and they were in different geographical areas too. Like we had one airport called Opelika and another airport called North Perry, and I don't see how that population ever was connected. There's just way too many buildings and construction and highways. So those two had to be escapees from the airplanes. I mean, as cargo.
Makes sense, yeah.
I've seen ads in old hunting magazines where you could buy jackrabbits for a couple bucks each.
Yeah, I was very, you're young and dumb and you don't think, and you think it's going to last forever. And I'm telling you guys, it doesn't. I mean, we had just talking to you guys just a minute ago, I was telling you that I've flown more falcons than anything else. I never thought my duck population would crash. I mean, if you ask me right now, if I only had one form of falconry that I had to practice for the rest of my life, I moved to Kansas and fly ducks and chickens all day long. It is what it is. You got to adapt, right? If you don't have a pliable brain, you're not gonna move on, and
right.
It is what it is. But I had a ton of ducks, and they just overnight stopped migrating to Florida.
Now, obviously, I think that would probably be explained by the lack of severe winters, and they have no need to go that far. Is that what you think it is, or the avian influenza? All that. What do you think?
I think some of it started. Nobody knows what this influenza started, right? Nobody knows. We only know what we've been told. So
right,
seriously, right? So I'll tell you this: I went from having a GPS on my truck marking like 5 hooded merganser slips to 0 in like 2 days, and it's not only me. I could count 5 falconers right now that were all flying long wings that just quit flying long wings and had to adapt and fly something else, or quit altogether because the ducks just stopped coming to Florida. And so hooded merganser played a big role in the ducks we would find down here for our falcons. Our model ducks, we have these ducks they look just like female mallards. They're modeled. The drake and the hen, you could only tell them apart with the beak. But the best way I could describe them, they're large. They look like large female mallards. Those populations are still there, but we have ducks that are on the rise, but we don't have the amount of ducks needed to fly long wings. The only ducks that we've seen the population increasing are the whistling ducks. But even the teal last year, so I get this aplomato last summer, and one of my things was I'm going to catch teal with this aplomato. And in the rice, there's usually a lot of teal in the rice. I think I've shown Casey some of the videos where my red tail off the pole perch is catching teal.
It's crazy, man. It's awesome.
And it's not. Once we start talking and I start saying some stuff that I've seen, you're going to be like, yeah, I get it. It's just that, look at the girl in I think it's Germany. She's caught 70 crows with her male red tail.
Yeah, car hawking though, right?
Yeah, because car hawking, but still, it's more. She's doing more than the guys catching pigeons with the Harris hawk out the car window. They're harder slip. I'm not saying that car hawking's my thing. I'm not putting it down, but I've done plenty of car hawking. But yeah. So even the ducks were back to the teal. I had 0 opportunity on teal this year. 0. And teal don't migrate on weather. Teal migrate on sun's position.
Interesting.
Right?
Well,
so
I didn't know that.
There's certain ducks that migrate strictly on where the sun sits. And there's some ducks that will migrate on snowfall and winter. Okay. And so many of the ducks that supposedly migrate on just, the the amount of daylight have not been showing up down here.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the lack of a cold winter has affected us, and since I moved, I haven't done so much duck hawking like I used to in the past. But the coldest days, those couple days of really cold weather, that's like peak duck hawking for us short wingers, because they're all in the streams and wherever the water's moving, and it allows us to get a better slip at them. When it's warm, they're in the big water, hard to get. But for you, it's completely different because it never freezes down there. So it's a whole different kind of game you're playing with them.
Yeah, it's either they're here or they're not.
Right.
Yeah, and agreed. I mean, when it's been really cold up for you guys, when you guys get a lot of snow and you're frozen for a long period of time, I could understand how we get more ducks. But hey, my buddy's in Nebraska right now flying chickens, and it's cold in Nebraska. It's all frozen, and the ducks are still not down here, But it would be right now, this time of year, it's reverse migration. But I don't know, man. I still have a lot of available land where we hunt a lot of with the falcons. We hunt ducks. We look for either dairies or cattle fields, and we hunt ducks on those ponds. But I also hunted a lot of ducks on ditches and agricultural land. Like, imagine a big cornfield and there's ditches every 550 feet. We would just stop at every ditch and glass. And if we'd find some ducks, especially with the falcons, I'm talking.
Yeah.
My buddy Daryl Moon and I, we put up the falcon and with our walkie-talkies, and we would walk towards the ducks and we would pinch off the ducks. You understand what I mean by that?
I do. Yes, of course.
Yeah, and then because you don't want the duck to keep flying down the ditch.
No, that's their main.
It's not going to work.
Do. Yeah,
it's not going to work. But and we would find enough duck slips to justify having a long wing. But it is what it is. I sent you that video with that coops. That was a shoveler, and we would do the same thing with the long wings on that same setup.
I would pay good money for setups like that.
that setup's harder than you think. But it's a great setup for a falcon because you got to look at the water table. If the water's really high, they see you coming.
Of course,
yeah. So some of the setups that I've seen on YouTube, I'm not going to say this too much, but I look at them like, especially the urban duck hawking setups. That is stupid easy, man. I can do those all day long with my red tail. Those are where they're half tame and you're looking down on the creek and it's like 20 feet down. I would pay for that one.
Well, come on up. I'll charge you. But no, the problem with those ducks is they don't want to get off the water. So your bird either has to be game to crash the water, or it becomes like this rat hunt. And as you know, ducks are very clever and they know when your bird's out of position. So it's like the ones that are tame are actually, for me personally, they're way harder to catch because they're not as panic stricken when you show your face and yell. They're like, oh, this crazy guy again. All right, what are we doing here? But like the ones that are like, they just came up from Canada, they're still like got maple syrup in their beak. You show your face, dude, they just blow out of there. They're like, ah, and then the bird just catches in midair. Like it's cake. The ones that are habituated are not, they won't get off the water.
I get it. We got Disney World, right? And they dumped a bunch of mallards over there, and there's mallards all over Disney World that you could pet, and they're half wild. And I get it. I totally understand it. I wonder if you use your dog to get them out. A lot of guys use dogs, with the falcons to keep the ducks from moving.
Yeah, Nathan Highland, he does that. He utilizes, what is that thing called again? It's called like a terror or mongrel. No. What is it called? It's called, I thought it was a dog's name, but it's an actual breed. The Munster.
Yeah, Munsterlander.
I thought that was just its name, but it's a Munsterlander, and that thing would jump in the water and get them to get off the water for it. Which is pretty cool.
Named his dog Munsterlander?
Dude, I don't know. I have no idea. He never said Munsterlander. He just said the Munster, and I thought that was like his little, his little nickname.
Munster.
The Munster. Yeah, I thought it was like the Munster. Like I didn't know it was an actual breed. It's actually a fascinating breed.
They are cool dogs. There's a guy here. He's not a falconer. He's falconer adjacent, named Brandon Price, and he has a small Munsterlander. Did you know there's a large and a small, and they're two distinct, different things?
I've heard of the breed, and I think I have a buddy down here that I think he has one of those. I'm not sure, and he's using it. And this guy's he's my hero. If I tell you that this guy's practicing falconry in a off road type wheelchair, he's paralyzed and he's still practicing falconry.
Dude, that'd be me. Good for him.
He's amazing. He worked at he was working at Cape Canaveral and he fell like 3 stories and got paralyzed, and he's an amazing man, and
oh my gosh,
powered through it, and he's out there and he's doing it. And I think he has that breed. I'm not sure. He's a big dog guy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Maybe we need to talk to him.
Yeah, he's an impressive man. He's, like I said, he's my hero.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible, man. That's I mean, it's like, that's the other thing about falconry is it's like you're only as good as your body, you know, like running around through the woods, jumping over stuff. It's like if you got bad knees or something, like you're really limited in what you can do.
No doubt. I have my buddy Daryl. He's a little older, and I'm the one that's flushing all the ducks now for him, you know, and we went out to Texas this year, and he brings this goshawk, and he's thinking he's going to catch a jack with this Tiercel goshawk, and he's and there's a joke there, and
okay.
He's like, dude, if he grabs that jack, I need you to run, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get it.
You got to put that wheelchair in sport mode and get out there.
Exactly, and I was in Texoma one time watching these guys hunt these eagles on jackrabbits, and we were out there and we were running, and a couple guys with goss and stuff, and talking about snakes. We're running because the jackrabbit was giving this goshawk the business, and we're literally hurling over rattlesnakes. That day, I must have seen like 6 rattlesnakes. I'm like, I'm out. I'm not doing this, dude. I'm out.
What time of year was that?
Time of the year?
Yeah.
Well, all my trips are usually either December, January. It was probably January.
Jeez, what part of
Because
Texas?
It was sunny. It was really sunny, and it was quite warm. It was sketchy. It was really sketchy.
Was this South Texas or
Texoma?
Where? Yeah, I got no idea where that is.
Between Oklahoma and Texas. It's literally, it's half the town is, I think that's on one side and the other.
Okay, gotcha.
Interesting. Yeah, because what do they come out of they all den up together, right? Or is that like a myth?
I have no idea, man. But
they definitely they do for sure.
We're actually in communication with a gentleman who did something for National Geographic out of PA, all about rattlesnakes, and we're talking about having him come on. And it's like a doctor, very smart guy.
He's like a doctor.
He's like a doctor or something. No, he's a doctor, and National Geographic did a whole piece with him on like rattlesnakes in PA and like their denning habits and stuff like that. Be a good conversation, especially for guys in that area that, you know, I don't really think about it, but I guess where I am now, there's a decent amount of rattlesnakes where I live. I just never seen them or been in that situation.
In my line of work, I saw several people get bit, and it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Hey, that's a good question, man. I asked this question to another guy on the show who was a ER trauma nurse, and he had a crazy story. Do you have a crazy story?
I got lots of stories, but that's another podcast, dude. I was a paramedic firefighter for 28 years.
Oh yeah, you've seen some stuff.
Yeah, dude. I got some stories that yeah.
You know, I was an EMT for a while too. I've seen some stuff too.
Yeah, I
not as cool as you though. I can't put IVs in. I can just basically wrap you up and look at you, keep you alive till we get to the hospital, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's different down here. We're here. You got to be a medic and a fireman to get on the job, and there's like no volleys, so it's all paid, which is good.
That's good,
you know, because that's one of the reasons. It's funny. So I'm in school. I'm thinking of becoming a biologist, and my buddy Spence Wise, I'm at his house, and we're gonna go hawking, and he's like, I'm in high school, you know, and he's like, don't do the biology, you're not gonna get paid, you know, and he's saying you're not gonna make money, and he literally talked me out of becoming a biologist. So I'm now thinking, what am I gonna do? And my buddy Daryl was already in the fire department. I'm like, Daryl, don't laugh. I think I'm gonna be a nurse. And he goes, become a medic and get on the fire department. And he goes, because I was really trying to work shift work to, it's the best way. It's the only way, unless you're independently wealthy, that you could fly birds and have a family and make any kind of money, Yeah. So that's how I got here. That's how I became a fireman, was basically seeing what he could do in the schedule he had. And once I did it, man, if I got addicted to that as well, that was perfect for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
We worked 24 hours on and 48 off. So it was one day work, one day entire flying hawks, and the other day family.
Oh, that's nice, man. That's a nice schedule. That's a really nice schedule. Yeah, that's something we talk about on the show a lot for like younger people. It's like, if you're going to get a 9 to 5 and then, think you're going to squeeze hawking in, it's just going to always be a challenge for your whole life, basically.
Yeah, I was lucky again. I had enough mentors that they knew that I was very passionate about falconry, and they're like, you got to make money, but you also need the time off.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you just, like me, self-employed, make my own schedule and then lose a bunch of money by not working as much as I should, probably.
You guys now in the trades, man, I don't know how it is up in New York, but you guys are killing it down here.
We're slinging it, dude. We're slinging it.
My brother has a HVAC system.
Yeah.
Oh, he's killing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The HVAC guy, they say the HVAC guys make more than the plumbers, I think.
Yeah. The HVAC. You're right. Good for them.
They're more important in Florida.
Oh yeah. You die without air conditioning down here.
You can crap in a bucket in Florida, but you need some AC.
Yeah, when it's 98 degrees and it's 99% humidity.
Yeah, you can't play with that. Yeah, especially if you got a wife and kids. Yeah, they'll pay whatever it is. You can just tell them whatever, and they'll just be like, whatever. And they just pay it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So George, I'm curious about the conversation about ducks. What kind of invasive species you can successfully hunt down there? You talked about the purple swamp hens.
Okay, yeah. So
Muscovy
I'll give you an
ducks.
example. When I started off with and my buddy with a goshawk or a Harris hawk, if you want to get them on birds, we target these African purple swamp hens because again, there's no season for them, and they make a decent entry type bird. The guys that are car hawking Coopers or even the Tirso Harris hawks, they target all the time the collar doves. But now collar doves are everywhere. The Eurasian collar doves. Those are the two. Just like the guys with the kestrels and the starlings. But down here, the Eurasian collar doves play a big role in falconry. Plus, we use them to trap. Right. Yeah. We can't use mourning doves, but we could use collar doves. Especially if you're trying to get a Tirso peregrine. Tirso peregrine is more likely to come down to a dove than he will for a large pigeon at times. But yeah, those are the two main ones. We got Egyptian geese. A couple guys have hunted those with red tails. But be careful. They bring a fight. They are. Have you seen Egyptian geese, guys?
There's a guy in Germany who sends me videos all the time of his German goshawk catching Egyptian geese. He says they're invasive there too.
Yeah, I had him over.
You know that guy? He's a cool guy.
Yeah, I had him over. He came to my house. I took him out.
That's awesome.
God,
I can't remember his name either. I just know his Instagram profile picture is like Bert Simpson with a hawk or something.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, I like that guy.
He's gonna watch this video and he's gonna get mad that I forgot his name.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. I've talked to that guy for years and years. Really nice guy. He gets it done too.
Yeah, he was telling me how he did it. He had a deer lanner that got killed by a goose. I
believe it.
The goose tore up that bird pretty good, and they had to put the bird down.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah, so they're like they're like a Canadian, maybe a little smaller.
Okay.
But it is what it is. Some guys have tried. If you get in there fast enough, and they're going to do what geese do.
Yep.
We have Muscovy ducks. They don't fly with a dam. Nobody. The hawks eat them up. The Cooper's hawks will take the babies. The red tails will take the baby Muscovies, and they'll take a female, but no one's going to mess with a Drake Muscovy.
It's a big bird.
It's a very big bird.
Okay, I'm not familiar with them.
It's the Drake Muscovies is pushing geese size.
Okay, and they fight hard, I'm guessing.
Oh, they fight hard, yeah.
Okay, yeah. They call the whole geese catching conversation is an interesting one, and I kind of was on both sides of it for a while, where it's like, I really, really want to catch one, and then like everyone's like, it's stupid to catch one, it's dangerous, and I'm like, yeah, but I really want to catch one. And then I caught a couple, and then I got like pro comment, people that were in support of it, and then people that were like, you're playing with fire. And I was like, screw you. And then like having my bird get beaten half to death by one because I couldn't get there in time. It's like, it's like, yes, you can catch them. It's cool to catch them. But when you can't get to them quickly, that's when your bird's going to get beaten to death or drowned, or they're all going to team up on it. So it's like I'm not going to tell anybody not to, but I'm going to tell them it's fun, but be careful, because it's, you could definitely get your bird destroyed from it,
Yeah, I've learned one thing, that in this life that we've picked, if you're doing it right, it's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle, right?
Right, 100%.
It never ends well. Think about it.
With the geese?
No, with any of it. Think about it.
Oh, no, it's never going to end well, of course.
It's never going to end well, usually, unless you release the bird and you don't know the outcome.
Right.
But usually,
it's still not going to end well.
Huh?
But it still won't end well. You just won't see it.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I get it, and I also, it is what it is. And talking back to the buddy of mine, this gentleman Wayman, he was hunting. He's the one that caught the iguana, and he was chasing squirrels, and he caught a bunch of squirrel with this terrestrial red tail, and this red tail comes off this tree and hits a male Muscovy, and that was the last time he did it, because he got, he almost got knocked out, or might have gotten knocked out. But after that fight, he never touched another Muscovy.
Right.
So it kind of worked in his favor, right? He could still hawk the squirrels because the bird was not going to attempt another duck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they could get hurt. My red tail got knocked out on a jackrabbit. So it is what it is.
It can happen anywhere. And me and Aaron talk about this on the show quite a bit. There's nothing more dangerous in falconry by far than the cottontail rabbit. Agree or disagree? Right? It's a trick statement.
Okay, it is, because it's probably the most common prey that we chase. And you and I were talking about this. I love flying in the wind, but I refuse. Not that I refuse. I get picky when I'm flying in the wind. And when I mean wind, so everybody knows what my definition of wind, it's anything between 15 and 20. Okay,
right.
I think anything less than 20 is not windy; it's breezy.
Right.
And the flights are awesome. But the birds get a little reckless, and when that cottontail runs behind that piece of machinery, or I had a hawk that bruised himself so hard because the cottontail ran into this rock pile that was overgrown with weeds. The bird thought it was slamming into grass, where, well, there was rocks behind it, and the bird could not fly for a week after that. So, for sure, I get it.
Yeah, just the way they're so adapted to stripping predators from them by the way they move through the cover in their environment, that it's like there's nothing more dangerous to fly than the cottontail rabbit, because your bird's, unless your bird can't fly fast enough and it's a Harris hawk or whatever, that's fine. But I'm just
well, you got a red tail that just once it catches it stops moving.
Exactly. Well, right. If your red tail gets there and just puts the off switch.
Red tails don't get dragged.
Yeah,
male goshawks get dragged. Red tails don't get dragged.
Correct.
No, I think Casey's referring to, while the cottontail's running, it's using fences and glass and metal.
I just could tell that Casey and we could have fun together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're on the same wavelength. Busting chops on the show.
Yeah.
No, listen, I'm a red tail guy. I'm a red tail guy that flies goshawks. That's it.
I'll tell you what.
So he's not a red
tail guy. I'll tell you where I stand. I love them all. For real.
Yeah.
I'm not brand loyal.
Yeah.
I try not to have too many confirmational biases. You understand what I mean by that? I just don't want to hear one camp because that's what I want to hear,
Right.
I like them all. I just look at it as let's say as a plumber, right? If I had to sweat a pipe, there's a set of tools that I'm going to use that. But if I need compression fittings, or if I'm doing PVC, it's a different set of tools. So I think they all have a place. If I had a ton of ducks on ditches and quail, I would have a male goss, right?
Right.
If I'm going after squirrels a lot, and if I'm going after fur, and I don't want a squadron of birds flying, it's 1v1. I'm going to pick something else,
Right.
So it's no different than the long wings, man. If people get, in the long wing community, I don't think you guys have really flown a lot of long wings. I don't know if you have, but you get guys that are just peregrine guys. You get guys that are just hybrid guys.
Right.
I've flown them both, and I think and I've changed my mind so many times from when I started falconry to where I'm at today. What I think of these birds is so different. I used to think bald eagles were these lumbering, slow animals. I'm telling you right now, the bigger birds are faster than the smaller birds, and I'll stick with it. I've seen a bald eagle fly my falcons out of the sky. I'm walking in there thinking I got the fastest, baddest bird. I got a deer peregrine. Nothing could touch this. Okay, here's this slow, lumbering bald eagle flying my deer Barbary out of the sky.
Yeah.
So when you see a bald eagle fly down any duck it wants, where no goshawk, no falcon could do that, maybe. I had a passage peregrine that I'm looking at it fly, and I'm like, man, it's not what I thought, until I flushed a duck. Those passage peregrines are amazing at putting food on the table, catching. I'll give you an example why I say bigger is faster. Deer Barbary flying at 680. He had to be about 500 feet for me to flush to get him in the cone to kill a duck. I could flush a duck with this passage peregrine, at 150 feet. And I wasn't trying to flush to catch a duck. I was actually trying to teach a lesson to the falcon, but the falcon taught me a lesson. I was hoping the duck was going to blow the falcon out of the water. This passage peregrine barrel rolls and just runs this thing down. Most tearsols can't pull that off.
Right.
So I changed my mind on many, many issues. And for me, I like them all. It's just what game do I have around, and what can I fly?
Love it. I'm of the same mindset. If I had no squirrels, no rabbits, no ducks, I'd be flying a Sharpie on sparrows or starlings. Like, I would just get the next bird that would fit the niche that I have. But I have a question for you, because this podcast, we haven't, besides like a couple guys, we haven't really had like any like real passionate. We've had a couple. I shouldn't say that, but they were on for other reasons, and then we didn't really kind of talk about it. But Dave Leapy from South Jersey, he goes out to Kansas. He's all about the Deer Peregrine. He loves the Deer Peregrine. Like, can you tell? Like, and you've flown them all, and Dave's flown a bunch too. But we're talking to you. What's the difference between a Deer Peregrine Tearsole and a female peregrine? Why not just get a female peregrine? What's the difference?
Okay, so I'm not the expert.
Okay.
Shingren probably better on this podcast. I'll tell you my experience. I consider myself a guy that's been doing falconry a long time, but I'm always thinking that, like, if I was an apprentice, I could learn from everybody. Like, when I got the passage peregrine, I called this guy called Steve Duffy. This guy's the man pretty much when it comes to, he's flown a lot of passage peregrines, and the best peregrine I've ever seen fly was his. He has this bird called Twiggy that's amazing. There's a lot of things, and even the way you're training them. I'll tell you my experience. If with the passage peregrine in Florida, it's very difficult. It's one of the hardest things to pull off. I consider myself very lucky that I was able to pull it off. And I'll give you my definition of luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? But I was still lucky that because I had enough ducks when I had that peregrine. Again, I don't have control over the amount of ducks. So a passage peregrine will pull the trigger on check almost every time it can, because it's a wild bird. It's caught the cattle egrets. It's caught the blackbirds. So for you to keep this bird focused on you, waiting for you to flush a duck, but it sees a cattle egret, 500 yards away, it's nearly impossible. You follow me?
I 100% follow you, yes.
But if I buy a deer peregrine and I do my very best to keep it from ever catching any check, right? And all it knows is to wait for me until I flush a duck, and that's what he's going to kill, a duck or a pigeon. It's a lot easier to pull off in Florida, where I got check year round.
Right.
Okay. I like flying male falcons, tearsoles over females, just because of the visual of it. Okay. My favorite hybrid is a deer barb. I love that peregrine subspecies Barbary. to me, it's just a heavier wing-loaded bird. They have to flap a lot like a hummingbird. It's almost like watching a male coops. I think a female goss is faster than a male coops at 100 yards, but that male coops is just stunning. Just to see it do its thing, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of like the same thing. Watching that bird, that if it stops flapping its wing, it's going to fall out of the sky. The males are just also more prone to take a higher pitch, and for long guys that are flying long wings, they'll tell you the pitch doesn't matter that much to them. But if their birds are doing 800 feet consistently or 1,000, they'll tell you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's easier to get them any of the males. So then why do you? So a tiercel peregrine sometimes it's too small to catch a big mallard. Most of the time, not always. So you end up with a gyr hybrid, and that's how you're able to pull off catching greenheads. Big mallards with a tiercel falcon.
So you're doing it for the aesthetic more than anything else.
Well, for me now, that's part of it, right? For me now, it's the flights are probably more important than killing. I'll give you an example. I sent you that video of my red tail on a soar where I threw a pigeon.
Yeah.
Casey, I rather throw a pigeon for that red tail when she's way up there than catching 3 contails. Even though I bagged her on a pigeon, but just the whole thing of watching that thing fold down and stoop, and it's quite difficult to pull off consistently because I was a long wing guy. I don't leave home without pigeons. Right. I got a flock of homers, and it serves for a couple different reasons. One, I call them my volunteers. If she's doing what I want her to do, a pigeon's coming out,
Right.
And I fly my birds kind of loose, kind of heavy. If she's off in the swamp somewhere where I can't get her, or my buddy's birds acting up anybody, I put a pigeon on a drag, and it's like instantly retrieval,
Yeah.
So it's just a habit that I developed flying falcons, and it's too easy just not to go in the pigeon loft and get a few.
Yeah, pigeons are nice. They're definitely nice, and yeah.
It's the aesthetics. If you want to put a lot of ducks in the bag, get yourself a female peregrine. If you want a high flying falcon, that just looks really, really impressive, a gyr hybrid would be the way to go.
Does the hybrid piece eliminate the danger of the health concerns that gyrs typically have? I could imagine
absolutely.
Florida being a horrible place for gyrs. Yeah.
I would assume so. I mean, if anybody that has a gyr falcon in Florida is a special kind of person.
Right.
Yeah, there's no need, there's nothing for you to hunt. There's a reason why they're not down here, right? I think you're gonna kill them. We have just way too much asper, and there's nothing. That's just silly. But yeah, I've even that when every gyr hybrid I've ever had, I keep in an air conditioned garage. I have a shelf perch, and that's where they stay most of the time.
That's nice.
Just to avoid the asper.
Okay. So to put game in the bag and kill a lot of stuff, get a female peregrine.
Ducks. To kill ducks.
Okay, ducks. But then to have a more flashy, kind of beautiful flight, get the gyr peregrine hybrid. Because from what I was told, the gyr peregrine hybrid flies almost at the same weight as a female peregrine.
Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
So they're the same weight, but one's a tiercel and one's a female.
Bingo. And tiercels, just like I think in most hawks, if we went around the table, we'd probably all say we'd rather fly a big male than a big female in almost any species. Well, or we want a small female that flies like a male.
Correct. That's my whole goal this past season was to get a male pure albitus, because apparently the albitus, they fly almost at the same size as a North American female.
Okay.
So that's why I really want one, because I want to see what it can do and how it flies different, because it's a tiercel. But nobody had one, so I ended up with a big clunky female that's actually turning out to be a decent bird. I actually like her. But
yeah,
I agree
that's
with
where
you.
I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
The tiercels are, again, we talked about pitch. It's a big deal for long wingers, and other than aesthetics, I mean, and we love seeing the birds coming from 800 to 1,000 feet coming down and just smashing a duck, and all you see is feathers. I mean, I'll tell you what, there's only a handful of flights that'll keep me up at night after going out hawking, and those were definitely it. When I had my bird way up there, and we'd flush ducks, and it was great. I would go again with a couple buddies, and it was great. But it is what it is. But yeah, the female peregrine is easier to train. At least for me, my experience, the peregrines are easier to train, easier to keep around. Most of your hybrids, their first year, if you don't lose them, you're doing well.
Okay.
They have a strong dispersal um, um, thing, where the peregrines, even this passage peregrine, and I've only flown one, but it seems like all my friends that have flown a lot, once they know who butters their toast, they're very loyal.
Okay.
The biggest thing with these passage peregrines, what I've seen so far, and I started seeing that with my passage, you got to avoid, and I think this is for all birds, but I think even more so, we're talking about male and female. I think the females, you got to worry a little more about this, is that relationship we start having with them, where they think we're the male and we're feeding them, and we almost get them on welfare,
Right.
where they're waiting for us to feed them,
Yeah.
and they start getting lazy. I know of many guys that their female falcons literally stopped flying, and all they wanted was to lay eggs or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah, and Steve Lehman talks about this, that the tear soul of any species he's a killing machine.
He's just the provider.
He's the provider. He's just
Agreed.
He's just there to kill all day long. And if you can tap into that somehow, you're going to have a phenomenal falconry bird. It's just a matter of
100%.
It's just a matter of tapping into it, because once you tap into it, that thing is programmed to kill another. Think about it. That thing is a tear soul goshawk. We're goshawk. I'm a goshawk guy, but like the tear soul goshawk is programmed to kill enough to feed a female and eyases, all spring and summer long.
One
little bird. You know what I mean? That's a lot of killing that bird has to do. So they get really good at it.
I agree. I was just
think about when you're trapping red tails. How many males do you see before you get a female? A lot.
Yeah.
I think they're just more successful.
I don't know. See, my experience, and it's all experiences, right? I've flown a lot more Harris-hawks, coops, and falcons than red tails. I just here recently in the last 5 years we've been doing more red tails. But I want to say the last 5 we trapped were all females. And I got a funny story about that, between like urban red tails and red tails that maybe the rest of the country traps, or just out in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking specifically about these birds. This is a really cool story. We go out, we see this red tail, and these are all branchers. Okay, these are early passage birds, family group birds. We go out there and we find the birds. We put a BC with a gerbil, and the hawk just looks at the BC and the gerbil, does nothing. Okay, come back the following day, and I have a pigeon in the BC. That red tail slams it. 5 different birds avoided or did not pay attention to the gerbil, but they all slammed the pigeon.
Interesting.
And my theory is, and it's again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist, but I've seen enough of these. That their birds they're a huge part of their diet in an urban setting.
Down by you.
And, yeah, and we don't have that many rats, so it's not rats. So there's on Instagram, there's a lady that was following these red tails on her fire escape, and she was photographing all the kills, and it was nothing but starling, doves, and pigeons and squirrels. That's it.
Wow.
So yeah, I've seen the red tails by me hunting grackles, cattle egrets, a ton of birds. Again, the urban setting where I'm at, they can't survive on rats or snakes. It's birds and squirrels. So that's
interesting.
Yeah, all 5 birds, all of them ignored the gerbil, but they slammed the pigeon, and that's one of the reasons that how I purposely, when I started on this thing with this red tail, trying to get a birdie red tail, I said to myself, I really hope that it comes to a pigeon and not a gerbil. It was in my mindset. I was telling my buddy, because that's I'm already, what are we doing? We're stacking the cards, right? It's no different than buying a bird dog or somebody buying, let's say, a Harris-hawk. You want to buy it from a reputable breeder, a good stock. If you're at family group, if you're trapping branchers, and I've done this with coops, right? The one that slams a trap out of 4 birds, he's either starving or he's the gamiest bird.
Right.
And now you pick him up and he's round and robust. You're already walking away like, dude, I got one that's ready to go, you know? So we were, and all the birds we were talking about that slammed the bird, the BC with the pigeons, they were all very good birds.
So now so basically, just for the audience knows, we're kind of leading into a very unique style of falconry that most people don't do or only think about in theory, that George does on a regular basis, which is catch feather with a red tail, consistently. So was that something that you went into, like you had this all planned out, like I'm going to get a red tail and I'm going to try to catch ducks and birds with it, or was it just something that kind of came to you off of the trapping aspect of it, using a pigeon?
So here's a story. We talked about, I lost my ducks, right? I have no ducks. So now what do? Right? I know I at the time I did not want to buy with I'm married, my wife, she helps me a lot. If it wasn't for my wife and my kids to support me, I couldn't do this, right? But I also didn't want to get anything where I was tied to the bird. So I wasn't going to go to another Harris hawk. And my mindset was already changing from seeing the eagles and seeing all this other information, and I hadn't had a red tail in forever. That these and watching these urban birds by me catching all these, these urban hawks catching all these birds, I had like a hypothesis, right? And I go, you know what? Let me see if I could prove myself right or wrong, So I set off, and I told my buddy Daryl, and I go, I'm going to try to trap a brancher red tail. Why a brancher? I'll tell you why. Because I felt that I am getting most of the benefits of a passage without the negatives of some of the negatives you may get from a passage. A brancher or family group bird hasn't, it doesn't know that it can stand on a power line and wait for a snake. So now I'm trapping a bird with a clean slate, if you will, as far as what it knows to hunt and what it can't hunt, So, but it still has a muscle memory. I mean, I watched these birds for months. They start flying before they're ever hard penned. All the birds do. And I'm watching these hawks chase each other, play, hawk grab ass and do all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is good, And finally I trapped one. So, and I used the pigeon, and that was part of it. And again, I say that I'm lucky. I am lucky in the fact that I have access to farm fields that grow rice. And because of my past experience, I've flown a few coops, and I flew like 5 different terrestrial Harris hawks, in which I caught, ducks and quail with these terrestrial Harris hawks. And I said, I actually think these red tails have more potential than a terrestrial Harris hawk.
That's a bold statement.
I proved it.
I know.
And I'll tell you why. And I'm not trashing anything. I think there's some awesome in all fields, right? I think that terrestrial Harris hawk could do stuff that no Harris hawk could do, right? No red tail could do. I think they're more maneuverable, for sure.
Yeah.
But so I trapped this bird, and I really concentrated on flying birds. So I escalated, and I learned this from flying chamber raised Harris hawks, right? So when they asked me, hey, how long did it take you to train this hawk? It took me 30 something years, because I put everything that I've learned into this one bird. I get the bird, and I really felt that the T perch is more beneficial to a red tail than to a Harris hawk. So I trained it off a pole perch, and it worked out awesome. I never have to call the bird. It always comes to the pole perch, no different than a goshawk, knowing that your fist is its hunting perch. If you only strictly hunt a goshawk off the fist, you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a lot of guys that's all they do, right? She knows this pole perch is it's where it's at. And I started off with gallinals, and then we have rails. You guys ever flown rails?
I've not, but to me, everybody poo-poos on them, but I think they look like fun to chase.
No. But I'm getting at, just so we understand, they're not a fast bird.
No, yeah.
Right, but they're a great bird to enter a hawk on that has zero experience.
Right.
And especially, I'm going to say this, that accipiters love feathers like fur. Red tails love fur like feathers. Would you agree?
Yeah, for the most part.
The genetic push is stronger to catch rabbits than it is for it to fly down birds.
For which bird?
Oh, the red tail. The red tail has a stronger genetic
to push, right? To catch. Yeah, a red tail would rather, it's more genetically pushed to catch fur than feather. Yes.
Yes, right. So
I agree.
I am trying to not suppress it, but really push the feather thing hard. So so it's all about confidence, and I learned this flying falcons. A lot of it's in their head. How confident are they towards that prey? So I did the purple swamp hen. I did the gallinal. Which the guys across the pond call them moorhens. Coots, rails. I quickly learned that the king rail is faster than the Sora. The king rail is actually an okay flight. So once I started realizing, all right, we're going in the right direction. Early, teal arrive in Florida really early, guys. For the guys that don't know this, teal spend most of their lives down here and only go up there to breed. Okay. So they're in Florida by August.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the calendar. I just can't wait until early teal season opens,
Right.
And yes. And
right.
And I'm walking in there, and I got the bird on the perch, and at first their wing beat was where my buddy's tearsel goshawk automatically took off to the teal. It turned it on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
With the red tail, it wasn't a speed thing, and this is going. If you've never flown, for the guys that flown falcons, they'll understand. Teal are not that fast. Teal are not that fast. I'm sorry if you think teal are fast or not. They look fast because they have a fast wing beat. They're very agile, but as far as top end speed, they're not. A mallard is faster.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all visual. I call it the hummingbird effect.
Right.
And that's I'll keep going back to this. It's like an eagle, right? An eagle doesn't look that fast, but it has a lot of torque in every single wing beat. And an eagle flying a duck looks really bizarre because you'll see that duck's wing beat just like a blur with that eagle, that slow, deep wing beat catching up to the duck. You're like, oh my God.
Right.
And the thing, and I think a red tail has the same thing here with how the visual of it. So she was able to catch up to the teal from day one. But they were maneuvering in such a way that she couldn't maneuver like a tearsel goshawk could. You follow me?
Yes.
So it wasn't a speed thing. So she finally figured out. But till today, the teal give her the most challenge, because I think I started earlier, in our conversation earlier. She won't go in the water after the teal. So many of the teal dump back in the water, and she'll just pull off and not commit and catch them in the water. Where here, my buddy's tearsel Harris hawk, one of the firemen, his bird will dive right in the water because he hunts a lot of, coots and other stuff, and his bird is just made to it. He'll follow the teal right in the water. She won't, but it's nothing to do with speed. I had one flight that was awesome where we were getting these teal that were coming up in front of us quite far. She takes off from the pole perch and she goes out, and the teal dumped in the water, and it was kind of breezy. She takes off on a 45 and she starts kind of waiting on. And because of the falcon experience, I run in there, start flushing ducks. And she comes on a 45 and she looked like an eagle. She just ran down this teal, scooped it up.
Oof, man.
So yeah, I started seeing things like, dude, they may not look that fast, but it's happening,
Right.
Yeah. And I sent you that video, right, with her chasing those tree ducks.
Yeah.
That's the best setup for me right there. When I find them on these large ponds, shallow, and I just get 100 yards away and let her go when she's ready. And you saw it. She came off the pole perch like an eagle and just wait. And then I'm screaming like an idiot, trying to get all these birds off the water, knowing that she's not going to go in the water after them. And I don't want her to catch them in the water. I want her to catch them in the air,
Yeah.
and that's it, and I think anybody could do what I'm doing. I'm not special. I don't think I'm, I had the experience that I had with the Harris Hawks and the Coops and my buddy with the Goss, and I put it all together. And if you're in Louisiana or anywhere where they have flooded marshlands and you could walk in there with one of these birds on a pole perch, you're going to catch birds.
That's fascinating.
What do you wear when you're out there? You have to wear waders?
I don't know if I'm stupid or brave, dude. I wear the mud boots, the lacrosse, and I shove and I used to shove my pants in the boot, but then like if there's any kind of crop on the field like rice, then all the rice falls in the boots.
Yeah.
Now I just wear it over the boots and I get wet. I mean, at times I've even just had tennis shoes and just throw the tennis shoes in the truck when I'm done because I could run faster. But
interesting.
Just mud boots, because usually you can't catch anything if the water's above your boots anyways, right?
Right.
It's just too much water. The ducks are just going to dump in the water. So that's something you gotta. And it's time on the saddle, right? It's time in the huddle. You've done it enough time, you know when it's a good time to walk in the rice.
Dude, I think if you're hunting a rice field, I think you should just wear like no shoes, one of those hats. And I think you should just if you're going to be in the rice fields, bro, just be in the rice fields. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I hear you, dude.
Robe, you know what I'm saying? Robe.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, dude. I hear you, but that's I hear you. You know
what are those hats called? What are those hats called that they wear over there?
I don't know. We got to find a Vietnamese somewhere and ask them.
What are they called, Aaron? Aaron knows everything.
I think they're called rice planter hats. You're talking about like Raiden from Mortal Kombat wears?
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking rice hat, keep the sun off you. You're in South Florida. You wear a nice robe that comes like maybe midway thigh, no shoes, or maybe just like sandals, right? And you just go all in, bro. Bombs going off. You know what I'm saying? Rice patty, bro. You're in there. Just go for it,
dude. I think you need a different genetic makeup for that.
What are you, Cuban?
Cuban ancestry. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we don't do rice, dude. We do baseball.
You did it, yeah. You're fast though. That's the thing.
I'm okay. I used to be okay. I'm in my 50s. I'm not fast anymore.
Yeah, dude. Speaking of fast, and this has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but where were we, Aaron? Where I took off running after my bird, and somebody said, "Wow, Casey's faster than he looks."
I think it was West Virginia.
It was West Virginia, and I was freaking running, and yeah, whatever. I'm nimble, bro. I'm nimble, and So
at least you're tall.
Dude, that's the second Oh, he's okay. Because somebody else said that I look tall, and I'm like, dude, I'm not tall. I'm like,
dude, I'm messing with you, dude.
Okay, good. All right, good. So, yeah, man, that's fascinating. But now here's like a technical question, like actually back on the podcast. If you had like late October taken passes, do you think you could pull it off the same, or do you think there'd be more challenge?
Okay, so.
I've tried everything that you're talking about. Sorry to interrupt you, but everything that you're talking about, I've tried. I've tried to set up slips on streams with red tails, and it's just it's hard.
Okay, so everything we do, we want to stack the cards in our favor. Yes.
Yes. Right.
That's why I got out Brancher, and not only that, the way I think I always try to put myself and think like the bird. Right. So many falconers think they're like a dog or like a piece of equipment. And I went out of my way to secure baggies, right? So that's something that a lot of guys don't do, right? So I had baggies. If I would go, I'll tell you a great example. If I went out on Monday and we had 3 flights and she didn't catch, she wasn't going to eat. I'd give her just enough. I'd go back out on Tuesday and I would bring a baggie with me. And if she didn't catch, she would catch a baggie. My models to this day, and I learned this with all my hawks: hunt, catch, kill, crop up, empty out, do again. And I love flying my birds when they're mutant green, small, because I know they're empty. And I've realized that I could fly them heavier doing that. I started flying this bird at, she was like 1150. I got her all the way to 1240 this year. Every year she keeps going up. Right now, she'll fly rabbits at any weight as long as she's empty. And because she knows that if she catches, she gets a good crop. I could still do multiples, but I'm not leaving the field without her catching and connecting that her kill was and her crop was with the kill. So I was very detailed in having baggies, and that's a big deal. With the quail, I've caught quail, and this is where I'm going to ruffle some feathers. I've had five male Harris hawks, okay, and I've caught quail with several of them. Some just sucked. I don't think all birds are created equal. It's just the three of us right now. There's something that Casey could do that I can never do as good. That's why we have the Olympics, right? There's 8 billion people on the planet. How many people could run even close to getting into,
Yeah.
So they're not all the same. And we all know a falconer where he keeps talking about that one bird that was a stud, but he's had 8 other birds he got lucky with that bird,
Right.
So
That's-
with
sorry to interrupt you, but we talked on the phone the other day, and that's a controversial statement because there's a group, right, Aaron? There's a group of people out there that think it's all on the falconer, and if your bird doesn't turn out or it's subpar, it just reflects on you. And I'm 50-50. I think that some birds are just, for lack of a better term, they're just meant to die.
Casey, I agree. I'll tell you why. My buddy had a falcon that the falcon identified as a vegan. I mean, legit, this falcon would not kill. It would not kill anything. It was impossible. Okay. I had a 3/4 that was that I did everything I could. And it was the same thing. It would fly great, but it wouldn't kill anything. So I do think there's a lot. I think it's a third, and not exactly a third. I think a third is the bird itself. You got 2 goshawks, and I bet they're very different.
Yes.
Right?
Very
We've all
different.
had plenty of birds, and they all have their own personalities and their own, you could trap 3 red tail, and one's going to be a superstar on quail, and the other 2 maybe not so much. So,
George.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned the weight of your bird.
Yes, sir.
We had a previous guest who said that the Umbrenus redtails in Florida are the largest subspecies on average. The weight of your bird does not sound like a big one. It's kind of an average-ish female redtail. What do you think about that?
I'm going to stay in my lane because I think that I don't know enough about the subject matter to give a comment. But I've seen some really big red tails in northern Texas that look a lot bigger than mine. I think just because the book says it, I could find a book right now that I have in my library that says Florida red tails are the smallest.
Huh. Well, based on what I've read, you'd said the red tails in northern Texas were big, and that is actually the Fuertes red tails, probably. And
yes,
they do say that the Fuertes and the Umbrenus are supposed to be the biggest red tails.
Maybe by tarsi length or something, but not. Well, I'm in South Florida, so maybe northern red tails. I do think I will tell you what I'll stay in my lane. I'll tell you what I've seen at a NAFA meet. I was at a NAFA meet like 20 years ago, and I'm paying attention to birds that I don't have, right? Because you're at a NAFA meet,
Yeah.
If you got this one, whatever, that's just a sight. So I'm looking at this guy with a ferruginous hawk. It's the first time I've ever seen a ferruginous hawk, and I'm like, holy shit, this is cool. And they were talking, and they had an eastern and a western, and there's a definite difference between the eastern and the red tail, eastern red tail and western red tail. That I remember as it was yesterday. Our eastern birds, I think our Florida birds are very genetically close to eastern birds. I think they're just darker because we're more hot and humid. And they is there a reason for them to be any bigger? We got the same prey species that, I think the eastern bird, if you look at the eastern bird and the eastern gray squirrel map, they overlap. There's a reason why eastern birds have bigger feet than the western birds, and I think it all has to do with squirrels. I think that's their number one mammal prey species that they depend on, especially during nesting periods. I think there's a big difference between adult red tails that are breeding and first-year birds that are just trying to survive and what they capture.
Interesting.
I truly believe that. I mean, you look at a nest and any of these nest cams, there's a nest cam where there was a male that was bringing meadowlarks and blackbirds. Like 3 meadowlarks and blackbirds and blue jays, I don't think a first year bird's doing that, you know, and a lot of people don't know this, but my understanding is red tails aren't mature until they're 3 years old. It's the color of their eyes, it's not their tail.
Right.
So I think their prey item, you know, is very different, you know, when there's time for breed and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think my bird's very big at 1,200 grams. She's flying at 1,230. She caught a jack this year, 1,220. She molts around high 1,300s, low 1,400s.
She's
a decent bird.
That's a nice sized bird, but
yeah,
not a giant.
But I've heard of 1,600 gram birds, and I don't know.
Flying at 1,600?
No. Trap. I'm flying her heavier than I trapped her.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that should be all our goals.
Yeah,
depending on what you trap
Yeah, so back to this the system that I used, like with the quail, right? I started bagging her on quail really early. And I learned this from Eric Tabb in the book called Desert Hawking 2. This guy was flying Harris-hawks down here in Homestead with his terrestrial Harris-hawks, and he was successful. And he had a great thing on there where he would always bring, if he knew he was going to fly quail, he would always bring a volunteer with him, a bob, right? And if the bird would put in a bob somewhere where he couldn't get a reflush, the bird got a reflush, if you know what I mean. He had a throwdown bird just for the psyche and the bird's willingness to want to keep doing this.
It's a great idea.
That's
okay.
That's
I've been doing this. I've been doing this with my terrestrial Harris-hawks for over 20 years, and it's worked. So I did the same thing with her. So I found a field. This is how I do. I find a field where the first bagging, where it's nothing but either like a golf course type grass or dirt, where the bird could physically see the quail land. You follow me? I hamper the bird just enough where the bird still flies like a quail, but it's not going to blow the bird out of the water. I hate seeing a bird boomerang. I hate it. So if the hawk sees this quail put in, it understands that it's not a duck that's just, he has to sprint and catch a duck right away. He understands that if he stays with it, he's going to have a chance. So then what I do is, ideally, I try to find a field now where if the bird doesn't give it its all and stays with the quail, it's going to miss the opportunity to catch the quail when it puts in. Okay? And then I bag her consistently on quail where she knows that she could do it. And this is going to be controversial, but out of the 5 terrestrial Harris-hawks I've had that came from really good pedigree, she is the best at quail right now.
The red tail.
The red tail is faster than all the male Harris-hawks chasing quail.
Wow.
That doesn't surprise
I clocked her at 53 miles an hour multiple times.
Jeez.
Yeah. That duck slip that I sent you, Casey?
Yeah.
That was 53 miles an hour, no wind.
That's fast.
Yeah. So, and she doesn't look it, right? It's just those deep wing beats. So,
and me and you had this conversation, right? Correct. We had this conversation like years ago, where I asked you a question. You posted a slip, and your red tail caught something, and I was like, dude, I think I commented. I said I've never seen anybody do that before, and then like you messaged me, and you basically said what all imprint or any goshawker says is basically, I had to teach this bird that so that she knew no failure. Like she never experienced failure. So she followed through with every slip because she never experienced not being able to catch it. So she would always put everything into every slip. And that's why we're successful. Something like that.
Yeah. It goes back to, man, we got to keep these birds off welfare, if you know what I mean.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Your whole thing with, if she misses, we keep trying, and at the end of the day, she gets just enough to keep her okay. And then in the morning, we got to get. That's gossip. I'm doing that stuff. September when I'm sweating my brains out. I'm doing that early season with any imprint goshawk I'm doing. And
I did the same thing. Yeah, it's the same deal. The only difference is, like my buddy with the terrestrial goshawk, his birds prefer the feather, and on the fur, he has to. So I had a slip last year, which I was so mad. I was flushing quail and she wasn't chasing quail because she was seeing rabbits. Where the Tiercel goshawk does the reverse. If a Tiercel goshawk sees a quail and doesn't catch it, and we don't bump any more quail, I've seen so many that will refuse the rabbit slip on the next shot on the same day until it's like the last 10 minutes,
Wow. Okay.
Okay. I've seen that many times where with her, if she's seeing rabbits, she's going to wait for the rabbit. If I'm not flushing rabbits and I flush quail, she's going to be on it. So, yeah, and it is what it is. It's a genetic push. There's a reason they have these big ass feet, and it's not just to catch mice. It's mainly to, I think, in my opinion, to catch big mammals. And they're drawn for that. And a Tiercel goss prefers to catch birds.
Yeah.
I was in Texas with a couple buddies, and we were hunting this field, and we were getting quail up and rabbits and jacks, and this one goshawk could not catch a rabbit. Could not. Tiercel goshawk is not my first choice if I was just going after fur. Okay, it would be my first choice if I was doing quail and duck. But we get a quail up. Guess what that goss does? It catches a quail, but struggled like crazy catching a rabbit. It couldn't. It never caught a rabbit out in that field, but it caught a quail. Explain that. I explain it by the genetic push.
Yeah.
It's more genetically driven to catch birds than it is feather. And this is a European bird. It's not a North American. So let's get. Maybe we should clarify that. I think it seems to me that the North Americans seem to be a little better on fur, or a lot better.
That's what I've heard. I've never flown a North American myself. So yeah, on Tiercel. But yeah, so I've heard the same thing, that there's pretty much no issue getting a North American Tiercel on bunnies and ducks. Yeah, I've never heard of that being an issue.
My buddy, I've seen goshawks fly for the last 30 years. My buddies had them the whole time.
Yeah.
And the European goshawk now on the market has made it where I tease them. I go, dude, it's cheating. These things are just too easy compared to a North American. I miss those days where you couldn't walk around a tractor or there was some dude walking 100 yards away with an umbrella. That bird was freaking out. I miss those days.
Yeah.
I got to give him crap,
Yeah, it's funny.
You guys are cheating now with these European birds. They're just too easy. But
the European, I tell our friend of the show, Harrison, the European goshawk is the easiest, especially the female. It's the easiest bird to fly. It's like a red tail, just a high-strung red tail. That's it.
Yeah, dude. I see his males. My buddy has 2 males. I'm telling you right now, they don't break feathers. It's not like flying a coops where you're every flight you're like, oh my god,
Right.
Yeah, they're really easy on the tail for the most part. But yeah, my experience is if my buddy and I are out and we it's a duck slip on a ditch, pull out the goss all day long. Some greenheads on a ditch, and it's if we're gonna hunt jacks, take out the red tail. Yeah, it's for us, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what I've done, and she's 5 now, and I still bag her, Casey. I still bag her on quail at the beginning of every season.
Interesting.
We have, yeah. It's again, I'm trying to keep her honest, but the baggies, I don't hamper them anymore. Obviously, she's catching wild quail. So I went from easy to hard, and we're able to get birds down here that fly really good. What do I mean good? Over 550 yards wide open, these baggy quail, because
wow.
Yeah, they're really good flying birds.
So where are you getting it? So what are these? I mean, they're
pen raised.
And what do they go in there and scare them every day, 5-6 times a day to get them muscled up?
I don't know how they do it. He's one of the biggest producers of quail for the Southeast, for Georgia, North Florida, where they do these plantation, bird hunting plantations.
Yeah.
And they've gotten expensive. I used to get them like a $3 bird. Now they're like $6.50 a bird.
Yeah.
No less than 10. It is what it is,
That is pricey.
And they're huge flight pens. Imagine almost like an airplane hangar.
Jeez.
Yeah, but it's worth it. I'll tell you, we do it all the time. I mean, we used to put out birds. We made these feeders, and We go around with our bird dogs. We put out quail. We'd put out a lot of quail, and we wouldn't hunt them for weeks. Let them go wild. And it was crazy, man. We'd go back in 3 weeks, and these birds knew where the briar patches were. They knew where the holes were. And we constantly feed them Milo, and it was very sporty. It was easier to catch a wild bird than some of our put out birds. Because they're fed.
Right.
And the wild birds are, and they're a little bigger than our wild Florida quail, so they were harder, they were faster.
Interesting. Man, this is great stuff. Yeah, the concept of buying baggies, not every baggie is created equal. Same way.
100%.
Yeah, because like I bought ducks one time, like these cull ducks from like Tractor Supply. Somebody bred them. I'm not gonna say who he was. Friend of the show though, and I bought them from him, and I threw one out for my my imprint. This is years ago, and that thing it just like as if I took a rock and threw it from my hand. It just went and just smacked the ground and stood there, and then my bird just hit it on the ground. I'm like, well, okay.
Casey, yeah. I agree with you. And again, because of my experience with the falcons and all that, if you could get yourself mandarin ducks, they fly great baggies, great size. It's not like a big greenhead that's gonna kick, fight,
Okay.
But they make great baggies.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're pretty.
Those
wood duck.
A wood duck, yes, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, because the bird needs to fly, and to get a baggie that flies well, from what I've heard, there's like a protocol involved. You have the person who's breeding them, they go in there every day and they consistently flush the baggies from one end to the other, and make them fly back and forth out of fear to build flight muscles. And then when you buy it, it's strong and powerful. And when you cut it loose, it flies.
I listen, when we buy these baggies, they fly like champs. And then my buddy has a decent sized pen where he keeps them. And within 3 weeks, we say they gotten sour.
Right.
We're not using them. Now we're only using them to train the bird dogs.
Right.
Yeah. So we get them and we want to use them within the first week, because I learned this from flying falcons. Not every falcon's the same, but I've seen so many falcons that just were waiting for a baggie because the baggies flew different, Yeah. And I'm always trying to mimic what happens in the wild. Always. Couple books that I've read that I think were awesome, and I think almost every falconer should read. The 4-Week Window was a great one. That Desert Hawking 2 is just you and Flying Falcon. What is it from Pitcher? And they all are saying the same thing. You want to try to mimic what happens in the wild the best you can.
Yeah. Yep. Replicate nature as much as you can.
Absolutely. Hey, let me ask you a question, because I've noticed this, that I wish I knew this when I was a lot younger. Do you guys treat for coccidiosis often?
I do. I just get the pills from like Western Sporting. They're just like pigeon pills. I just at the end, like twice a year, I just give them to the birds preemptively.
I just think that's a lot of young guys don't know that, and I've seen a huge performance difference in all the birds. I remember when I used to go to Kansas and hook up with these guys in the spring and do the spring duck hunt thing, and I just remember one of the guys talking about it, that he and my falcon was flying like crap. I gave him a coccidiosis pill. The next day, the thing's a rock star. Right. I do it now religiously with the hawks. If I see that she's missing one too many times, or she doesn't want to hunt any of them.
How do you do it, George?
That's why I asked. I think I'm going to do a protocol. You know what I mean? Do it when it looks like it's needed, and maybe 3 or 4 times during the season.
Are you using the same ones? They're like from that pigeon brand.
Yellow
bottle. It's got like a yellow pigeon background with a pigeon on it.
They got one now that's for falcons. It says for falcons, and it's the same medication at a higher dose. Right. That's like 5 milligrams. This other one's 7. Yeah, so it makes it easier for your bigger bird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This one says one tablet for one pigeon. I give, based off of the weight, I give 3 tablets for one goshawk, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. If guys, I wish I would have known that this was a thing. I wouldn't have got rid of or released so many birds that I thought just sucked.
Right.
And they were probably all sick with coccidiosis.
Right. It's interesting. That's good stuff, man. This is great stuff. Yeah. And I mean, that's fascinating that you're doing that with a red tail, because that's like, like I said earlier, I tried to do that like all the time. I only caught one duck with a red tail.
I think you could have done it. Just definitely could have done it. It's easier if you get a brancher and that's all they know, right?
Right.
And if you would have had a bunch of baggies, just the squirrels are innate for them. They see fur, they got to go after it.
Yeah.
And especially like I strongly believe that the prey item for a first year bird is very different than for a 4-year-old bird that's providing food to its mate and the babies.
100%.
There's a big learning curve because they're big birds, like eagles, right? Eagles have a huge learning curve. I see it with the falcons or with a Sharpie or compared to a female goss, right? A Sharpie comes out, or a Coops comes out like trained, as far as like its prey interaction.
Yeah.
That female goss is going to take a minute before it figures it out.
100%. Yeah.
And I think the red tail is even more so, more exaggerated because it's a different bird, it's a bigger bird. So I was just trying to, stack the cards there.
I think we're gonna get a couple people next year trying this. I think.
Just if a few pieces of advice, I would definitely try. Like if you guys could do that ridge top trapping with a pigeon, that would be my first bird that I would get because I know that it's birdie.
Yeah.
So I would definitely lean towards trapping a bird with a pigeon over a gerbil. Because you already know you got a bird that wants to eat birds.
Right.
Right. And secure a bunch of baggies. And I don't think I'm special. I just had the opportunity and to pull it off,
Yeah.
Sounds to me like you put more work into a red tail than most people do.
Well,
the results speak for themselves. Part
of it is too, it's not a hobby. You could ask my wife, it's a way of life. And if you're going to do it, let's do it,
Oh yeah, man.
And the other thing is I flew falcons. Falcons, this is going to piss off a lot of people. Flying hawks is playing checkers. You're flying falcons. We're playing chess against a computer, and it is what it is, man. It's a lot harder. And so I was just saying, I've flown falcons, and you come with a different mindset because it's a lot more work involved.
Yeah.
With a falcon, you're not catching any game.
Ever.
If you catch, it's a lot of training and the droning, and then it's a lot of work. You're looking at the duck slips, the management, like. You get any guy with a red tail or Harris hawk, you go out there and hey, just flush a bunny with even a flying a small falcon on ducks. You're looking at the pond size, the wind, what species of ducks. Like if ideally I would want like ringnecks before I ever put them on a greenhead.
Right.
It would be like ringnecks and then something like a widgeon, and then little bigger ducks, so it's a lot that goes involved, and it wasn't work to me. It was fun.
Yeah, man. There's a lot that goes into it. That's a good point that you bring up.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Long winging is a whole, I think, I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody, but like long winging is like it's more about like the process than it is about like putting game in the bag.
For sure. And you're not going to put the same amount of game, but because I came from a short winger for a while and then went into long winging, I still had to put game in the bag,
Right.
But if you're not putting game in the bag, what are you doing,
Right. I just feel now, like not nowadays, I hate to say it like that, but like with the sky trials and this and that, like it just seems like a lot of people are just more obsessed with just flying, like just the process of getting their long wing going and it flying in the air than like actually catching stuff. But like if you had to poll every long winger in the country and narrow down the average kill count for the year, like what do you think it would be in your opinion, George?
Oh, it's going to be, I agree with you, quite low. Because one, it's, I was talking about the luck, right? The third.
Yeah.
so many of them that if ducks don't come down, I got a great friend. He's that guy that has one of the best flying peregrines I've ever seen. I got a great friend, Spence Wise. He does awesome with his falcons. He's out right now catching chickens, and he does probably one of the best that I know. But he's put the time. He leaves Florida and spends his entire season between Texas and Montana just hunting.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah, but he has to put that work in. You're not catching any. I don't know of anybody in Florida right now that's consistently catching any ducks, right? So everybody in Florida that has a long wing, they're like having a bird on their fist. Right. I don't know. If one of the high numbers that I've ever heard was a friend of mine in Texas that had like 70 kills in one season, and that's a lot.
Ducks?
For me, here in Florida, between 20 and 30 is a good number.
That's a good number anywhere, from what I hear.
And those were the years that we had a lot of ducks, you know. But yeah, it's a big process. You go after it's, and again, we were talking about this earlier, right? It's a lot of it how it feels and looks.
Right.
You're out, in my opinion. Chickens are the game. That's the prize. I think he had like 30 or 40 knockdowns before he caught like his second chicken. It's so different than anything we do with the short wings, you know?
Right.
So it's a different animal. Again, we're out there in overalls. They're in tux or suits, you know? It's a different mindset.
No, they wear turtlenecks, and they have like a little thermos with like their little tea in it or something. Chai tea.
It's
chai tea with a little skim milk and some stevia. That's what they do.
Exactly. But it's
just kidding. Come on.
I did it for a while, and I said earlier in the beginning, if I could only do one kind of falconry and I had the ducks, I'd do it. It's very addictive because of the challenges. You know, the actual score is such a big deal because there's so much work to get there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's the 20 kills, the 25, ducks a season is equivalent to 90 rabbits with, any other
100%.
Short wing, basically.
For sure.
Because it takes so much more effort to get to do it.
It's like, if I don't know how to describe it. If you go out west and you score a jack, well, jacks are a little harder than cottontails,
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah. That's the beauty of falconry, and I say it all the time, and it's, whatever your cup of tea is, whether it's chai tea or chamomile tea, you can pick whatever you want to do. You want to drive around with a kestrel and catch starlings? You can have a blast doing that. You want to chase ducks with a long wing? You could do that. You want to catch squirrels with a red tail? Like, there is whatever your cup of tea is, you can do it. And I would go as far as to say is, in one lifetime, you can't master all of it.
100%. And I don't know if I've said it during the podcast. I still consider myself, I still have the mindset of an apprentice.
That's good.
I think there's no way, any one of us could ever master any one of these things, because first of all, the birds are so different from within the species, and there's so many nuances, and just hear us talking about what I'm doing. And I didn't do it in a vacuum. I'm a collection of ideas and history that came before me. I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that came before me. If I never read that book, Desert Hawking 2 from 1979, what he did with his Harris Hawk, I would have never gotten here, Yeah, I'm very fortunate who I had around me, and even being able to fly in the places that I do. So, and it's always evolving, just again, my mind has changed on so many things. From different species, what they could do, all of it. And I'm sure I'm going to change my mind again.
Yeah. I love it. No, I'm right in the same boat with you, man. Right in the same boat.
Yeah.
The third year general is the worst type of falconer. Because you think you know everything there is to know, or you have this image that I can do anything. And then it takes so long for you to be like, dude, I know nothing. I'm still learning. Like, there's so much to learn.
That is so true.
It's so true.
Work,
it is true.
It is true. I work because I was there though, especially if you get in it kind of young and you're like, I'm at a certain age where you think you know more than dad, and then you realize dad was right the whole time.
Right.
I in the kind of line of work I did, it's kind of like the trades a little bit, and the worst guy was that 5-year guy where you think you know it all, but hey, shut up and get in line. You don't know anything. Once you did 20 years, then you'll realize that, yeah, for sure. And it's good because some of those 5-year guys are the ones that develop different things.
Right.
Back then, we would train accipiters a certain way. Now guys are hand feeding and tame hacking, so somebody has to do it. And it's usually the younger guys that do it. So
yeah, good point.
We're either going to be a hero or a zero,
Yeah. I just think like you said, and that's huge. You've been in the sport for a very long time. And to hear you with such an open mind is very, that's really good to hear for other people to hear.
For sure. Listen, if you would ask George in 1998, if I had a contail running down the road into a 15-mile-an-hour wind, Tirso Harris or female red tail, I said Tirso Harris. My opinion has reversed. The female Harris hawk will power into that wind better than a Tirso Harris.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say that then. Why? Because the red tail that I had probably had coccidiosis, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Or whatever. It's just, and maybe this one's special. I don't think so. I've seen a lot of other, again, in talking about different species, right? Look what you're doing with this goshawk compared to your first goshawk and what you've learned. You look at let's talk about red tail. A red tail with an apprentice compared to a red tail that's from a guy like that's been flying them for 20 years. It's a different animal. It's almost like a different species.
Yeah. You said that I don't know if you said that on the show, but you said that on our phone call. You said there's a huge difference between a red tail with an apprentice and a red tail with somebody that's been doing it for a really long time. It's a very big difference.
That goes almost with any birds,
Right.
Whether it's a peregrine or, what did we say earlier? It's time in the saddle, time in the huddle.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great one. I like that.
What about a red tail at a frisbee golf course?
Why? First of all, why did frisbee golf? I have like 3 of them, like within 15 minutes of my house, and there's squirrels there. But like who are these people?
What?
Like they go there in the like they go there in the snow. I thought you were talking about
who are these people who are hawking at a frisbee golf course?
I would fly there if there wasn't people there in a snowstorm with their backpacks and their weird like hipster clothes throwing frisbees, and like it's so weird. It's such a bizarre sport. Whatever.
There's people who are there in 60-degree weather flying Harris hawks. What are you talking about?
I'd be there.
I truly wanted to put it out there that for the younger guys, try it, and this. I'm not dogmatic. Like, hey, this is the only way you should do it. This is the way I did it. It makes sense to me. I wish that somebody hits me up and says, dude, I did it and it worked. Or, if you're in Louisiana or anywhere that you have flooded fields where you got a lot of birds or big lakes, give it a shot. And I think if more people thought more like the biology of the bird and what it takes, instead of like, none of these birds read our books. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't, so just start thinking like a bird and what makes them tweak, Hey, a question. I obviously I have very limited experience flying in the snow. I've flown in the snow in Lubbock a few times. I found it easier and harder at the same time. I found that the rabbits were slower.
Yes.
Much slower, but they would dive in the snow like it was a rock pile behind the snow and disappear.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. They'll make tunnels.
I saw jacks do it, dude. I saw jackrabbits just dive into the snow and just disappear.
I don't have experience with jackrabbits, but yeah, the cottontails, there'll be a whole maze of tunnels underneath, especially like a briar patch where it's like a foot of snow. Like my dachshund's useless, but I basically carry her till I find, like if it's 2-3 days after the storm, you'll see little dirt, like little footprints of dirt where they come up out of the snow and nibble and then go back. There's a whole maze of tunnels under the snow. And you just drop the dachshund in there and just basically it's like my adrenaline and my whole everything's like shaking because I'm waiting for that rabbit to just shoot out of the snow in pure panic. And then my bird's just going to mop it up because it has nowhere to go and it can't run. It's the best. Hawking in the snow is the best. And I think the birds see them better too. They 100% see, they stand out like a sore thumb wherever they are because it's just this little brown dot moving on top of white snow. So the bird can see them. I think the scent sticks better for the dogs, and it's so much more fun. It's just annoying with dachshunds because if it's too much, then the dachshunds can't you got to run back and grab them and then run after the rabbit and then put them back down. It's like annoying.
Understood. Yeah, I was just going to ask because my experience was that I'm like, damn, they look slower, but then they disappear. That you're actually using the snow like if it was a briar patch or some kind of structure where they would just dive in there and disappear. And like I said, these big old jacks were doing it. I'm like, I had never seen that. I'm like, this is wild, dude. And almost broke my leg running in that thing, but that's another story. Because I'm stepping in snow. I don't know what's on the it's a foot of snow. I know it was a hole, and it's, that hurt, but yeah.
Yeah,
that's something you got to try, dude. You got to go out west and try jacks.
I was just going to say that. Maybe I'll join you on one of your trips out west because I've never been out west hawking before.
You got a female goss, right?
I got 2, yeah.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah, we'll get it.
That's something that's also different. And most of the goss that I've seen catching the jacks are all foot flushes, where the red tails, if you put them up on the transmission lines, like I'll take my jesses off. Again, I don't know what your opinion is with flying with jesses or without jesses on squirrels. I'll stay in my lane. I don't with the falcons we fly without jesses, right?
Yeah.
So if there's power lines, I'll take the jesses off. If I'll look at the power lines and kind of see if they're safe or not safe. For the most part, I avoid power lines completely. But if they're transmission lines where I think I could get away with it, I'll take the jesses off. And some of my best flights have been with these birds coming off these transmission line, almost like what they're doing out west with the soaring red tails.
Yeah.
But if you got a big female, dude, it's a lot of fun, man.
I mean, that's me and Aaron have been talking about it. Like Aaron's been out a couple times. I have before to hunt, and yeah, it's on my bucket list to get out west and catch a jackrabbit with one of my birds. And yeah, I mean, the whole transmission line things. I think you don't want
to do it with the goss. Is what I'm saying with the jesses and all. It could be sketchy. Be careful.
Yeah, no, I do all. I don't do a backpack. I just basically do a tail mount transmitter because the most times I've seen like videos and stuff like that of birds getting zapped from power lines. It's usually if the transmitter wire is hanging and it touches the wire. If you have it on the tail, it never touches.
I had a Harris hawk that I had it on the tail, and that's how I got killed.
How did that? It touched or something? She turned around or something?
Yeah, dude. So I've had 2 get zapped, right? Okay. And one of the Harris hawks landed on a power line that you see raptors on all the time. If you know what I'm talking about, it's when I explain it here. So it's a power line with the insulator, with a 2 mushroom insulator,
yes,
and then the line on top.
Right.
Super safe.
Yeah.
It wasn't so safe when the Harris hawk landed. And this back when I had like an L&L or whatever transmitter with a stupid long antenna.
Yeah.
It hit and fried the bird right away.
Jeez, yeah.
So I went to so when I was flying the coops, with the coops, it's really difficult. Kind of difficult. Where are you going to put this transmitter,
Yeah, right.
My buddy, the guy with the goshawk, he would get like a guitar pick.
Okay.
And he would make his own, where he would use a guitar pick, put a back then the casing where you put in the transmitter, and he would capture both decks. We would have to make our own. He'd make his own.
Interesting. So he would capture both decks with the guitar pick and then mount the transmitter onto it.
Right. Well, we'd put back then the little, what do you call the little where the transmitter sits into? You buy a Marshall.
The clip.
The clip, right? Back then, they looked like 222 cartridges welded together back in the day.
Okay, all right.
And and then Marshall comes out with the backpack. And I remember going to the vet thinking we were going to have to sedate this bird. And we had a coops hooded and we put the backpack on. And I've never gone back to anything else because what I think it's safer than hanging on the leg or.
I think the tail or the backpack is the safest setup for a transmitter. The leg is it just needs to make the problem with electric is you just need to make a circuit, and then that's when your bird's getting fried.
My one of my great friends, Peregrine, right in front of us, shattered his leg with a leg mount.
Hit something and went right through or something?
Hit a duck. The leg mount antenna wrapped around the duck and broke the...
oh, my God.
Yeah, it was...
Jeez. Yeah, I don't like anything. I just have a pet peeve with anything on my bird's legs. I like small anklets, 1/4-inch grommets, tiny, everything tiny. I don't like nothing hanging from. I put one bell on my bird. That's it.
So do I.
Yeah, I don't like too much hanging. It just drives me nuts. And you see these people with all this gear and clanky stuff hanging off. It just makes my skin crawl.
I got a Kershaw Coops bell on it. I think it's tiny on the red tail.
You're not using a red tail bell on a red tail. You're out of your mind. That thing belongs on a German Shepherd.
Yeah, and not only that. Why do I have this GPS transmitter on it? You know?
No, put that thing on the tail. Put it in the backpack. Get that off the leg. You got to get those feet free to do what they got to do, man. You don't want too much stuff hanging off of there.
I just have one bell so I'm lazy, so I don't have to pick up my phone so often.
You got to have one bell. One bell's good.
Yeah, so I could hear her coming off the tree. That's
it, 100%. I'm wearing this. Dude, I knew I liked you. Good stuff. George, is there anything else we want to cover? Where can people find you if they want to follow along with your unique style of falconry?
Casey, I'm kind of private. I didn't go public because of, how you posted all these idiots commenting on your stuff.
It's just funny. Yeah, I know. It gets crazy.
Mind.
Yeah, it gets crazy.
I lose my mind. That's why I never became a cop.
Yeah, you'd be looking them up in the system, finding out where they live.
I got to be honest. I was a little hesitant because I want to put out there, hey, what I'm doing, you could do it.
Yeah.
This is how it worked out for me, and but at the same time, I'm like, man, I don't know if I want all this attention either.
No, it's good, man. You're doing something super unique. You got to come on and talk about it, and we really appreciate you coming on, George. Thank you so much for your time.